Good evening and welcome to the Writer's Block. I'm your host, John Ronan, and as you know, because we are in our 34th year, I interview writers about their craft, what they're working on, what they've created already, what they're looking forward to in the future. It's not just a Writer's Block show, however. We have had on, as you know, other brands of artists. We have had on musicians, we have had on painters, we have had on sculptors. So if you have an idea for an artist, writer, or other variety who might be a good fit for the Writer's Block, watch for our address at the end of the show. We'd be very happy to get your suggestions. I also want to mention that the Writer's Block and all the other original programming that comes out of 1623 Studios is a result of cable access television. So you stick with cable, stick with the Writer's Block. I'm very happy to say tonight we do have a sculptor poet, because I first became acquainted with Robert Bliss because he has two poems on the Gloucester 400 anniversary website. Robert Bliss, welcome to the Writer's Block.
Thank you.
You are a sculptor, and I want to talk about that. You have poems on the website. I'm going to ask you in a minute to read them. Before the show started, I asked if you were from Gloucester, and you said not originally. How did you get here?
Well, I went to Nathaniel Hawthorne College in Antrim, New Hampshire, and I met Bruce Woodruff. And I used to come down here to Bruce. They had the Vista Motel. So we used to come down to the Vista Motel and then go into Boston on weekends. And that's how I got to know Gloucester. And then, fortunately, I married Karen, and we weren't doing well in New York City, so we came up here. And it took me a while to get adjusted, but we both, I'm sorry, I'm looking over at my wife, we both love Gloucester, and we think it's a wonderful place. It's just the scenery, the people, what's going on. It's just fantastic.
So you've been here for a number of decades.
Yes. Oh yeah. Almost 50 years, I guess.
What year did you arrive?
70, I think it was. 70.
70. Oh, you've been here 3 years longer than I have. I came in 73.
We left for a little while, but we came back. Karen said, it ain't working where we are, so we got to go back home.
Your wife, Karen, by the way, is our audience today.
Yes.
We once in a while have a small family audience.
She's the best. She's put up with a lot, and she's my second set of eyes. I'll say, Karen, what's wrong with this? Don't tell me what's right. What's wrong with this? What do you see that isn't quite right? And she'll tell me.
Oh, in sculpture.
Yeah. Yeah. And she'll tell me about the poetry too. You say, well, this doesn't really, you're going off a tangent, or you're doing this or doing that. So she has administrative assistant skills. I ask her, how do you spell this word? And she knows. She instantly knows. And then she goes through the poems and she corrects the punctuations and such. So it's a team. It really is a team. Karen is just fabulous. And she has been well trained, you see. I'll get in trouble for that. To say to me, that's not right, fix it. I think you should do this. And it's very helpful.
So the poems you're about to read that are on the website have been helped along by your wife, Karen.
Oh yeah, she'll look them over and.
Well, the two poems that are on the website that our audience can go see at any time on the Gloucester 400 website are Gloucester 400, appropriately this year, and Cape Pond Ice. I wonder if you would read those two poems for us now.
If you insist.
I do.
Okay. Gloucester is where I live. I have roamed and have come back home. First came here when the harbor draggers were all you could see. Many people over the years arrived to fish, lobster, clam, write, paint, sculpt, and live on this rock so everlasting. Life isn't always easy, Winters can be fierce and long. The beauty that is Gloucester eases the strain of cold breezes. The sea, the harbor, the Annisquam flow, all around us, affording views people from all over the world come to see. Now we are 400 years from 1623. Strong from sail to diesel, from dirt paths to passable roads, from candlelight to electric light. Many changes through Gloucester remains, many changes, though Gloucester remains Gloucester and always will. Its heritage, history, harbor, and the legends of brave people who worked together to build this community year after year, generation after generation, improved life in this special place, never forgotten. Gloucester pays homage to all who came before. Celebrate the 400th by remembering everyone who got us to where we are today.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, you have another one that's on the website, Cape Pond Ice, which is familiar to everybody in Gloucester.
Yes.
It's an institution that's right down on the inner harbor.
And the owner, I always lose his name, he's a fabulous guy.
Did it change hands really?
I don't know.
Scott Memhard, you think?
Someone bought the building, but I think he's still working the ice.
It's Scott Memhard?
Scott, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. You want to hear Cape Pond Ice?
Please.
If I don't stumble. Strong, resilient Cape Pond Ice has seen the fishing industry through hard times and good times. Always there, always there. Hope it will continue to be with us. A valued partner in Gloucester's fishing history, a harbor monument to times gone by, never to be forgotten. The fisherman's last stop before putting out to sea, ice to keep the catch fresh, ice to assure a fisherman's livelihood. We need to remember that the then and the why of how we are here. We must remember the fishermen who went to sea and those who didn't come back. Determined men, boats, and ice made Gloucester what it is today, a place to be proud to live in and contribute to.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned before the show you had an example of their first poem.
I grew up in Greenbrook, New Jersey.
Greenbrook.
Greenbrook.
Where is that in New Jersey?
Near Plainfield. It's around Route 22. It's about 30 miles out of New York City. It was out in the country at that time.
Up in the woods.
Yes, it was. We had a mountain and we had Washington's Lookout on the mountain.
Oh, that's where there are bears in New Jersey. Aren't there?
Never met one.
But I've read there's bears in New Jersey. Not the New Jersey I know, but.
Well, I enjoyed New Jersey. I went to Forest Lodge, was a place that had 3 swimming pools and picnic grounds. I was the parking lot attendant, and when I was a kid, and I also helped the snack bar. So that was my big fun job. And I would hitchhike over 2 mountains to get there. Going uphill both ways. No.
So you wrote this when you were there?
No,
or
I wrote it about a year or so ago.
Oh, okay.
So Greenbrook was a brook, as well as a town. Greenbrook Township. I traveled Greenbrook's endless shores, navigated tranquil waters, swam in deep pools, and skated winter ice. Greenbrook was my refuge for so many warm summer days. I chased painted turtles, admiring their speed and stealth. As a little boy, Greenbrook was my sanctuary, a place to explore, a peaceful place embraced in the glory of nature. When you grow up, you must find new Greenbrooks for a calming influence in a complicated world. The trees, the grasses, the water no longer cloak you, hide you, no longer protect you from a sometimes unfriendly world. What a better place to grow up in, what a better place to remember.
Thank you. Thank you. I wonder if Greenbrook will now get a horde of visitors because of our show. Probably not, but maybe.
It's small. It's a township. I also worked for the contractor that did all this roads, plowing and patching and building roads, and that was quite an experience.
Now, you are primarily a sculptor. Poetry is not as important, and it hasn't been your main focus through your career.
Well, I wouldn't say that right now. My mind is in 5,000 different places at the moment, so I've got a couple of pieces I want to do, sculpture, but I'm going to wait because I have so much going on and other things. But the other thing about the poetry is I get concerned if I don't have something to write about. And I was up at North Shore Art the other day and I saw somebody painted cogs on a wheel. So I wrote a whole poem about cogs and being a cog in the wheel and what you could do to get out of that cog and so forth. So I look for inspiration and I want to write. I went to Emerson School of Communication and I took 2 courses in copywriting. And I was a self-employed consultant, advertising consultant for 12 years. And I wrote the copy and the concepts. And I loved doing that. And so I always wanted to write. And I wrote a lot of notes to friends and stuff. And I always enjoyed, wow, this is fun writing. And then one day, out of the blue, I wrote Greenbrook. And then after that, I kept boom, 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 kept going. And I get concerned, again, if I don't have something to write about.
Well, you're on the writer's block here, so that will never happen again.
That's right.
We take care of that. The show will take care of it. It's gone.
It's gone. But I really want to, I add a little philosophy in some of it. I wrote one about Marley, my niece, my nephew, what is Marley? Granddaughter, I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous, where we went down and she did some sculpture and I did, she's 5 years old, and I called it Marley and Me. And we went down there and I talked about all the things, and I put in the poem that Marley said, now we have to clean the tools and get all ready to go. So, yeah, she was great. And now they're putting her in art classes because she's very artistic and for her age, and she's very imaginative. So I encouraged her with that. And she left pieces that she'd made. One was a dragon's foot or a dinosaur's foot and other things. I took them down and I had them fired. And then I mailed them to her. And I said, now you can paint them any color you want. So
she's inherited some taste in sculpture, huh?
Yeah, well, she's very enthusiastic.
Good.
And she seems to have a bent towards the creative. And when she was in her house, she lined up everybody to do like a little play. I said, whoa, what's that? I was exhausted at that point. But she had everybody else line up and do this play in the living room. It was amazing.
Good. Well, she's gotten some good genes because you are both a writer and a sculptor. Yeah. And I want to make sure you told me before the show started that how you got into sculpture was a good story. So I want to ask you how you got into sculpture.
Well, it's a long story, but I'll make it short.
Well, make it, yeah.
I went to the Statue of Liberty, and I bought a Statue of Liberty. I brought it home. I had some plastiline clay my mother gave me or something, and I made one. Looked just like it. I said, oh, that's interesting. But I thought it was just play. And then later on, I was still tinkering with it a little bit. And then our son was in his mid-teens, and I did a portrait bust of him. And I was stunned. It looks just like him. I said, whoa, what the heck's going on here? So I met John Manship, and he says, well, you know, you ought to do a little of this with this. And, you know, he gave me a couple suggestions on it. And from then on, I got books on anatomy and proportions. Proportions in sculpture are key. This car has to have the right proportions. So you do a lot of measurements to get, if the body was too short and the engine compartment was too big, you'd know it right away. And this guy, if his legs were too long or his torso was too something or other, you'd know it. Proportions are the key.
What are the two titles of the two pieces that you brought?
This is Clamor's Quest.
Clamor's Quest.
Yeah.
And the hot rod?
Deuce Coupe.
Deuce Coupe.
Yeah, that was in the movie American Graffiti.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, and I put a flathead Ford in it with 3 2-barrels on top, and actually got the fan in there. And somebody said to me, "Well, how did you get the seats in there, and the steering wheel and all that?" I said, "Well, I put all that in before I put the top on." Simple as that. I mean, you
Good
just
planning.
put the
Good
top
planning.
on afterwards. But you have to play with the clay. You have to make sure it firms up enough to do things. This thing broke so many times. I'd have stuff underneath it holding it up. It would still break.
So your sculpting and your skill at sculpting, what sounds as if it was a great surprise to you.
Yes.
The bust of your son looked like, didn't look like a conglomeration of patches and
No.
bulges.
It was him. It was definitely him.
And you have now had a long career with a good deal of recognition for it. And I think it's a wonderful story to tell to our audience, because I know a lot of people, when they're thinking of writing, but other forms of art, they're thinking, oh, well, just I can't, I'm nobody, I can't do anything. But you can if you have to, at least you have to find out.
You have to, I wrote an artist thing in here where it says if you start a project and you're not in it 100%, forget it. You got to be totally in that project. You could see nothing else in the world except that project. Nothing else exists, nothing else is anywhere.
Boy, I wish I could focus like that.
You just focus right on it. And I think for someone that wants to be an artist or a writer, it doesn't happen in 1 or 2 days, as you know.
No, indeed.
It takes time. I call myself the tormentor. I have tormented 2 people into joining art associations, and the one guy I tormented into it has won 2 awards at North Shore back to back in 2 different shows.
Congratulations on being a mentor.
Yeah.
The,
But he's, you know what he is?
I want to get
I'm sorry.
to something else. The picture, you sent me some pictures
Yeah.
via email when we were talking about setting up the show. And I want to give our audience a chance to see those pictures in addition to the ones that you brought here today. And as Emily Games, our director today, is going to show these while we speak of the pictures.
Sure.
And the audience will see them. We spend about a minute talking about each one. One of the pictures, one of the images is called Done Fudgin', which locals will know, but maybe a broader audience will not. What's Done Fudgin'?
Done Fudgin' is a area on the Annisquam River where you may know better than I. Clammers would bring their harvest. Boats would pull up and unload their fish or clams or whatever. That was my understanding of it. It's down by the high school.
Behind the high school, yeah.
Behind high school. And done fudging meant they were finished working and they were pulling in to unload their catch, if I have that correct.
And you tried to capture that in the sculpture.
A guy sitting down with a bucket of clams in front of him. He's kind of looking off. And that was a pretty good piece, I would say.
Okay. I want to go to the second picture, or a second picture. It's a head of a bronze. Well, it's the head of a gorilla in bronze.
Yes.
And it now resides at the Franklin Park Zoo in Boston.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that sculpture?
Well, I went into Stoffa Gallery to drop off some stuff, or pieces. And Mrs. office said, "There's a woman that wants to meet you." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" She says, "She bought some of your things. She wants to meet you and say hello." I said, and I was a mess. I was unshaven. I just got out of, I was just a mess. And she walks in. And I said, oh. And she says, "Hi, I'm Brandy. And my husband, so-and-so, he was the Franklin Park Zoo veterinarian, and she was the gorilla keeper." She hands me an envelope with, I'm getting tongue-tied nervous, with entrance, with passes to get into the zoo. I said, what? So I went there, and she just took such good care of us. She took us all through the zoo, took us behind the scenes, showed us how the gorillas work with them. She said to the gorilla, "Show me your shoulder." He'd do that. "Show me your this." He'd do that. "Show me your," and I said, "Why do you do all that?" He says, "Well, when we examine them, we have to, ask them to do certain things." And she showed us everything she asked that gorilla to do, he did. He would touch his side, shoulder, or whatever.
Yeah, excuse me, go ahead.
And it was just amazing. And then she took us over to meet some other animals.
Did they ask him to sit for you?
No. What I did was, I said, inspired, I said, I have to do something for these people. I felt like I wanted to do something for them. So it took me probably over a year to do the head, and well over a year. Not every day, but it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So a couple of friends wanted to pay for the bronze, and then Skylight Studios came and picked it up, bronzed it, took it into the building, where the gorillas are, and they're drilling the holes in the wall to mount it. And all the gorillas came over to the window, and they're all just staring at this drilling. And I said to the curator of the museum, I said, "Why is it so low? You're putting it so low on the wall." "You'll see." And when they introduced it, all the kids just raced at it, ran at it, and they're touching it and kissing it and hugging it. And that's why it was so low, so the kids could do it. And then this is I have to tell this part. This is a little touching. We're out in the parking lot, leaving, and I'm of low self-esteem. This woman comes over with a child in a carriage, and you could tell the child had many illnesses, and she was mostly blind. So the mother says to me, "Thank you so much for making that gorilla. Now my daughter knows what a gorilla looks like, feels like." I was just stunned. I just couldn't even move. I couldn't say anything. You don't know what art does, and sometimes I don't realize it. What art can do is really affect people in a positive way. And that's the value of art.
The picture of the gorilla that Emily has just shown is impressive, and I can see that identification and that sympathy that people feel looking at it. I want to make sure we get to one other picture. I'm going to jump to the Tuskegee Airmen picture. The Tuskegee Airmen picture is important because you contribute to the Tuskegee Airmen Museum and other projects that they're involved in. And you gave me, before the show started, because I contribute to them also, this bronze plate.
It's
bronze
patina.
Bronze plaster.
Yeah, it's fired clay with a bronze patina.
Fired clay with bronze patina. It was a gift to me. I want to make sure that you can see it out there. Emily has shown, or will show, a bit of the picture that Robert sent me. This is the fired plaster that was given to me with a hook on the back, ready to hang. Very, very, very nice. And it's going to be hung shortly after I leave.
We met a Tuskegee Airman in Florida, and he told us the story years ago. And my wife and I were both just stunned by it. And then he told us that they wouldn't let him land in that airport at Florida near Tampa because he was black. And I said, come on, what is it? Ridiculous. But now he can. He still flies at that time. And he told us the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, what they did. And then we saw the movie. And then one of the presidents introduced the Tuskegee Airman, 100 years old, and all the missions he flew. And he had his grandson with him, and he was going to get into the Air Force or something too. And I said, that's it. I've got to do something for Tuskegee. And I did it, and I called up Tuskegee and said, I've got this relief. Would you like to have it? And it was in clay form. It wasn't even fired or anything. I didn't even make a mold at the time. Within a half an hour, they called me back and said, yeah, we want it. Within that, I said, oh, okay.
They were interested instantly. When did that happen?
Probably 3 or 4 years ago now.
Oh, just recently, yeah.
And they, the gentleman I talked to, I can't think of his name, was just fabulous person.
I'm going to hold this up one more time, see if we can show that, and we are showing it. This is the gift that Robert just gave to me, and an image of the one that hangs in the Tuskegee Museum. I want to close there because we're almost out of time.
I talk too much.
No, you did not talk too much. You talked just the right time. Our show's too short. We are almost out of time. We've got just a minute, so I want to say a couple of things before we close. I want to thank Robert Bliss for being on the show and sharing your love of poetry, because this is the writer's block. I have to get the poetry in there, and your love of sculpture and the development of your career over the decades. It's really appreciate people who are into two genres of art. Thank you for being on the writer's block.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank all our TV audience too for being on the writer's block. If you've learned something about Robert Bliss's sculpture and the importance of art, sculpture or poetry or other forms of art and its power, then the writer's block has done its job. Thank you very much for being with us, and I hope to see you again next time on the writer's block. Good night.